Greetings. My name is Kerry and I am a Republican. My identity as a Republican is defined by one entity and one entity alone, that being the Constitution of the United States, and as amended, to the extent that such either corrects the compromises of our Independence Declaration or more firmly secures to every American their right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Supporting my claim to that identity are the ideals expressed in the preamble to my party's platform, ideals that recognize our Constitution as the owner's manual for government, and the reaffirmation of our belief that the rights of the American people are unalienable rights, endowed by their Creator, and that government's principal function is to protect those rights. I am a Republican, and I intend to operate within the guidelines of the owner's manual, because doing otherwise puts me in a position for which there is no direction and thus jeopardizes all that is guaranteed by the manual. As a Republican, I have no need for additional labeling because my identity is clear. I do not consider myself to be on a plane of right or left, nor do I consider myself a conservative, for the word conservative implies some undefined measure of deviation from the founders' constitutionally charted course. A deviation generally recognized to be to the right, and again by some undefined measure, of one whom declares himself a liberal and consciously embarked on an ever-widening deviation left, a deviation that moves the fading torch of liberty further astern with each passing day. My party's candidates of the past and those the media attempt to select as our candidates of the future often repeat the words of the last great visionary president of this nation, Ronald Reagan. Words used to give us pause to reflect on the one in whom we had great faith, the one who took to the helm of this nation and turned the tiller to point us in the direction of national restoration, and his vision, a vision we shared with him of a shining city on a hill. President Reagan gave us the direction, but he left it to us to complete the mission, a mission that would require a navigator of parallel vision, one prepared with the objectives, the strategies, and the goals that would earn the confidence of our nation's people, a people who, in turn, would willingly do all that is asked of them because they too share in the vision. The people have been anxiously awaiting such a leader to rally them, to tell them exactly what needs to be done and how we together will accomplish the task to achieve each objective in the pursuit of our mission, to tell them how we can gauge our progress so as to know what is behind us and what lies yet before us. And most importantly, to repeatedly assure them that the rewards for their efforts will far outweigh their sacrifices, both for themselves and the generations of Americans to come. Unfortunately, the navigator this nation has needed for the past 30 years to complete the mission has neither been elected by the people nor promoted as a presidential candidate by the Republican Party. And because of that fact, the ground gained during President Reagan's time in office has been ceded to those who stand in opposition to both President Reagan's vision and that of the framers of our nation's Constitution. The Republican Party, and sadly so, has consistently chosen a course of mediocrity, and because of that fact, the people of the party were, at best, mediocre in their response to the party and its candidates. Let the results of the last two presidential elections speak to that fact. Let also the increasing numbers of independent registrations and plateaued numbers of Republican registrations speak in evidence of the party's stagnation. And lastly, on this same thought, let the historical number of votes in the last election for Libertarian candidate Governor Johnson speak as loud as any other evidence that the Republican Party has steered into the doldrums and lost the wind in its sails that billowed under President Reagan. In an examination of the most recent presidential election, we find a candidate and the Republican Party proposing about 80% of the very same thing the opposing candidate was offering. There were no proposals put forward by the candidate or the party that would significantly alter the course upon which we have been set. Instead, they proposed measures that would merely slow the pace of deviation from that of the founders' charted course. That being so, then what incentive was there for the people to choose less than that which was being offered in full by the opposition? Looking too at the motto of the Republican Party in the last election, which was, "We believe in America." I ask you, what does that mean? Does it mean we believe in the transformed America we have today? The America that accepts without obligatory opposition the ideologies of Marx and Engels while vacating those of Hamilton, Madison, and Jay? Or does it mean we believe in the America of a conservative, someone on the fence with no clear definition of exactly where they stand, but it is somewhere between the Constitution and a professed liberal's interpretation of it? Or does it mean the clearly defined America, gifted to the posterity of those who sacrificed so much to secure the blessings of liberty that no American in the comforts of their home today will ever match? I would hope for the latter, and I pray that you hope for the same. Fellow Americans, and in that term I am addressing every American of every political party, it is time to get back on course. A course that puts President Reagan's vision, the vision of our nation's founders, and the fading torch of liberty in front of us, not behind us. If the Republican Party is to survive, then it must reject the old, worn influences of money and aristocracy, and instead look to men and women who demonstrate their readiness for the office of president in their vision, their detailed objectives to achieve that vision, the strategies they would employ in pursuit of their objectives, and the goals they would use as measures of progress towards objective achievement and mission accomplishment. Nothing short of fulfilling each of these requisites should be accepted by the people. If any future presidential candidate cannot offer a detailed plan that balances the budget in 2 years and erases our debt in 30 years, and done so without raising tax rates, then reject them for their lack of fiscal discipline and a vision that is constructive to our prosperity. If a candidate supports income, payroll, capital gains, estate, gift, and corporate taxes, be they flat or graduated, then reject them for their inability to recognize that which is destructive to individual productivity, the harmony of the people, and the economy of our nation. If they have no plan for the termination of Social Security, one that preserves a reasonable return for those that have paid directly into the system, then reject them for their inability to recognize that which is a personal responsibility and a matter of individual benevolence versus that which is a constitutional authority of the federal government. If they support the various forms of Medicare, then reject them for their inability to recognize the difference between a tax system and a real health care system. If they cannot offer an immigration plan that brings immediate control to the flow of immigration and provides a pathway to citizenship for those well assimilated into our society beginning in 5 years and ending in no more than 8 years, then reject them as procrastinators and incapable of enforcing the laws of the office for which they seek. If they are not focused on government cuts that include the elimination of entire executive departments, then reject them as favoring a monopolizing, obstructive national government, one in contradiction to the framers' direction that this nation shall be a federal republic, one that recognizes the overwhelming advantages of innovative, competitive, and sovereign states. And perhaps most importantly, if a candidate cannot look you in the eye as President Reagan would have done and say, "I put my faith in God and the good of mankind, not in a government that dismisses one and corrupts the other through divisive means," then reject them for their absence of the moral fiber and character that produced this nation and will be absolutely necessary to defending and preserving it as intended for future generations. Fellow Americans, all that is wrong with this nation did not occur under one president, nor is it the consequence of one party. But one president, with the support of the people, can undo that which has been done in contradiction to the Founders' plan, and undoing with immediate, visible, and absolutely positive results that will restore our eroded blessings and secure for every American the opportunities to life, liberty, and the pursuits of happiness, the very foundations of the torch of liberty that should always be on our bow, never astern to our national course. I encourage you to go to RestoreAmericasBlessings.com and examine for yourself the vision of one man focused on the restoration of that which has been seized from you in the many forms of departure from the Constitution in which our government has engaged. There you will find the course corrections that eliminate our debt, restores our economy, returns control of your financial future to you, creates a real healthcare system, promptly, efficiently, and cost-effectively resolves our illegal immigration problem, and among other important matters, addresses with appropriate constitutional and moral conviction the direction we should proceed with respect to our nation's social issues. I thank you for your attention to this message, and I welcome your constructive ideas for the restoration of our nation's blessings.